everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Dr. Merrill Matthews, the Texas State Chair at Our Republican Legacy. Dr. Matthews, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you, Brittany, for having me.
I'm excited to speak with you on all things Texas because voters in the Lone Star State cast their ballot in the state's primaries on Tuesday. But before we get into the race results, did anything surprise you? What are some of your main takeaways?
Well, a couple of things surprised me. For one, John Cornyn, who is running for the Republican nomination, and the incumbent senator, won by about a percentage point. Most of the polls had Cornyn-Paxton, the current attorney general, beating him by 3 or 4 points and had been for several weeks. The other surprise is that James Tallarico, a state senator from Austin area, won fairly handily above Jasmine Crockett, a congresswoman who is stepping out and was looking for the Democratic Senate nomination. So James Tallarico won, and there won't be a runoff there, but there will be a runoff between Cornyn and Paxton.
Let's dive right into those Senate primaries because these were reportedly the most expensive primaries in U.S. history, and this one isn't over yet, at least on the Republican side. So let's start there. The race between incumbent Senator John Cornyn and the state's Attorney General Ken Paxton, arguably one of the ugliest races in modern history, right? It got really ugly. It got really personal. What do you make of this race? What do you make of the runoff?
I think it's going to get even uglier. We have the next election, the runoff election will be May 26th. So we've got several months to go before we get to that election. And my guess is we're going to see it's been the most expensive U.S. Senate race in history, I believe, and it's going to get a lot more expensive. And especially because John Cornyn, coming in as an incumbent, established Republican, big fundraiser and so forth. And I think increasingly, in fact, I think the Kalshi prediction markets this morning sort of gave John Cornyn the edge on this significantly because I think they think independents and others will end up going with John Cornyn, but it's going to be a tough race right now.
Congressman Wesley Hunt, he was also in that race. He finished in a distant third. As of now, it's about 13.5%. That's how much of the vote he got. Do you think that without him, this race would be headed towards a runoff?
Well, without him, you would basically have just the two major candidates, and then we'd see who would come above that. Wesley Hunt has been really tried to be the most MAGA candidate in this race. And so what you would normally think is with him out, that 14% or so would probably go more to Paxton. That's conventional wisdom. On the other hand, we're going to be talking about who can beat the Democrat, and there is concern that Ken Paxton won't be able to beat James Tallarico. I don't think it would be likely that Tallarico would win in a Paxton-Tallarico race, but it's not impossible. And so you may see a number of Wesley Hunt's people end up going over to to Cornyn, just because he's the most likely one who's going to be the traditional Republican and still be a conservative group. There's probably not going to be any difference between how Paxton would vote in the Senate and how Cornyn would vote, except for perhaps ending the filibuster. Paxton, I think, would probably be more likely to end the Senate filibuster.
I work at Forbes. We love talking about money over here. So I want to read some reporting from the New York Times. They wrote this yesterday, the day of the race. Mr. Cornyn and his allies have outspent Mr. Paxton and his supporters by roughly $69 million to $4 million on advertising. When you look at the outcome of this race, it's headed towards a runoff. Although Paxton was leading in the polls, how much do you think money really talked here?
It's a really interesting question because Paxton just didn't spend much money, but he did spend a lot of time in the area, in the neighborhoods, talking to people and conversing with them. And of course, his real advantage was, as an attorney general, he has the ability to be able to get a lot of attention based upon the things he does as attorney general. He doesn't really have many constrictions on him, so he can file lawsuits, he can do a range of different things, and he's gotten a lot of attention and got a lot of support from the more MAGA voters in Texas, and there's a lot of them in Texas. So I think just by being the attorney general and the kind of attention he brought to himself, he may have felt less he may have felt less like he needed to be able to advertise on that. As you point out, John Cornyn put a lot of money in this, and we expect more money coming in. But Cornyn's been in Washington. He hasn't been able to get out in the state nearly as much. And so that may have made some difference there.